Welcome to the Holly Furtick Book Club. I have been waiting all day for tonight. I have been waiting, I've been waiting for months for this night to come. But I have been so excited about tonight all day. My middle son Graham had a wrestling match and showed up. And it was supposed to start at 4:30, but then we found out that their team wasn't going first. And so my husband looked at me and he was like, go out to the car and work on book club. I was like, I'm ready for book club. I wish book club was in 5 minutes because I have been waiting. I've been waiting all day. I've been waiting since I read this book back in November. I cannot wait to talk to you guys about this book, and I cannot wait. I can't believe we're talking to Barbara Kingsolver tonight, and I'm going to try not to like fangirl out over this whole situation, but welcome to the Holly Furtick Book Club. If you are just joining us tonight, we are talking about Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. This book just came out. Of course, it's a New York Times bestseller because I think all of her books are New York Times bestseller books. And this book, it's upside down. Well, this is Instagram Live, so I don't really know how to flip it around. But you just take in the cover, because if you haven't read this book, you're gonna need to go and get a copy or do the Audible. I did the Audible. I love audiobooks. They're like a gift to me. But if you have not read this book, just hang on with us. Oh, look, Stephen Furtick's on. Everybody say hi to Pastor Stephen, my amazing husband. He said, best book ever. Let's go. Guys, I even got Stephen Furtick to read this book. And do you know how hard it is for me to get him to finish books? It's so hard. And he loved it. And okay, so if you're just joining us, you haven't read this book, you can hang out for a little bit. But I do need to tell you that the Holly Furtick Book Club, we do spoilers because we read the book and then we talk about it because it's a book club. So if you haven't read it, just hang on for a little bit and then pop off, get the book because you're going to love it. And then you can come back and watch this interview that I'm about to do with Barbara Kingsolver after you finish the book. Okay, everybody's saying hi to Pastor Stephen. I want to say hi to a few people who are joining us. Lisa Hughes! Everybody say happy birthday to Lisa Hughes because tomorrow is her birthday. Hello, Esme. Hello, Santos Kimberly. She says, I'll get it just because you said so. There's some adult content in this book. If you are picking it up, I don't want you to be shocked. Hi, Donna. Hello, Charlie Hughes. Hello, KL Cooper. Hello, Joy Isabella. I am Allie Owens. Hi. Hello, Kate DeMello. Hello, Shell G. Hello, Sophia. Faith Furtick, my mother-in-law, is on. She loved this book. Guys, I cannot spend a lot of time welcoming you. I cannot waste a lot of time on the front end of book club like I do sometimes. I know I get carried away. I know I talk too much to this camera, to all of you. But I can't tonight because I want all of our time to be with Barbara after we do our normal opening stuff. So, hello, Lisa Pham. Hello, T and Scones. Hello, Stephanie Castle 2. Hello, What Renee Reads. Guys, okay, before we jump into the content, I always start off by telling you what I read this month. We haven't met since December, so it's been like almost like 6 weeks. And I've had some hits and I've had some misses. You know, I only share the hits. Hello, Christine Kane. Thanks for joining us. I've had some hits. I've had some misses. I only like to share the hits with you because we don't need to talk about books that we don't like. There's no need. So I have 3 books that I read. One of them, and you know, when I say hits, I say it's worth recommending, but if this sounds like a book that you would like. Okay. So one of them was actually just 2. I just decided to take one off because I really didn't like it. Anyway, Tomorrow. Have you guys seen that book? It's everywhere and everybody's raving about it. And I will say I liked it. I didn't like it enough to be book club because I just didn't think that you guys that everybody would love it. And I really enjoyed it from start to finish. It's about video game programmers. And you start out with these two kids when they're like 10 and they're playing Super Mario Brothers. And then they grow up to like create video games together. And it's a great story, great coming of age, boy and a girl, non-romantic. I don't want to give anything away. I mean, there is romance in the book, but not a lot. Anyway, tomorrow. I really liked it. And I really think you should read it, but I just didn't want to make a book club. Okay. Then the second book that I read that I would recommend to you guys. And just so you know, if you're a part of the Holly Furtick book club, I send out an email twice a month, I think is what we're up to now. Maybe not even that much. But I send out an email and I will recap our book club and I'll tell you what we're going to read next. And I will give you these books and their links. So don't worry about it. But first one was tomorrow. Second one is Don't Laugh at Me. Okay. I actually read this book. It was called The Lobotomist's Wife. And it was on sale on Audible. And what happened was I ran out of credits. My credits didn't renew until January 28th. And I was like, I bought this book on sale. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give this book a try. It was actually very interesting. I ended up Googling a lot about lobotomies. And it was sort of like one of those books that's like a fictional account of a historical figure. So it was a fictional account of the man who like brought the lobotomy to the United States. If you like that kind of book, it was a quick read. If you like weird science fiction, not science fiction, fiction that has science in it, you would like it. I don't know. There you go. I'll send it to you in an email. Hi, Elise. Elise said, what had happened was, Renee says, sometimes I feel like I need a lobotomy. I know, you guys. But it was kind of interesting. It was actually pretty fascinating, the whole history of the lobotomy. So, all right, you guys. We got to talk about this book because we got to get Barbara on here and we have to talk to her about this. And I've been listening to some interviews that she's done and I seriously can't wait to talk to her. So first, before we bring her on, we have to talk about the things that we loved about this book. Now, as you know, this book, and I think I started saying this, but I got a little distracted. But this book is a retelling of David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. Now, I don't know if you've tried to talk to anyone about this book, but every time I told somebody, oh, you've got to read Demon Copperhead, it's based on David Copperfield. And people would say, The Magician? And I'm like, no, not The Magician, the Charles Dickens novel. Now, I have not read the Charles Dickens novel. I don't know, I wasn't ready. Maybe I will after talking to Miss Kingsolver, but I didn't. I watched the movie. And if you have read the book, you should go back and watch the movie. I think it's on Hulu and Amazon Prime. And it's called, I can't remember what it's called, but it's about, you just type in David Copperfield and it's the movie from like 2019. And it really gives you a good picture of what the plot of David Copperfield is. And you will love this book, Demon Copperhead, even more when you see what she's done with it. So guys, first of all, let's talk about what we loved about this book. Heidi Grecki says, I kept going back and forth with Wikipedia for David Copperfield while I read this. I know, it was so amazing what she did. We're going to talk to her about it too. So what did you love about this book? Not necessarily like scenes, but I know that this was a grittier book than we typically read. I know that this was a heavier book, a sadder book than we typically read. But I want to know what kept you reading it? What did you love about it? So here are some of the things that I loved about it. Okay. I loved how this book made me feel. I was, at one point, I was so anxious. The scene where he's in the gas station and the lady steals his jar of money. I was driving home from taking my kids to school and I was so into this scene. I was having my stomach was hurting and I was having actual anxiety, so much so that I had to turn it off. I was like, I can't listen to this right now. This is making me feel terrible. I don't know what's going to happen to this kid, but I can't take it. So I loved how this book made me feel. I loved how this book made me empathize. Like, I will never look at a person who struggles with drug addiction the same again. I never will, because it was so humanizing, and you just felt so much sympathy for him. And I loved how, even though the topic of this book was hard and it was difficult to read, I loved how it made me empathize. I loved how it made me cheer for this character. So I'm going to read some of your comments in just a second, but I have to tell you this part. I loved this boy. Like, I loved this boy so much, I wanted to adopt him. He was a real person to me, and I was ready to talk to my husband and say, we need to take this child into our home and help him. I wanted to help him. He was so lovable. And a lot of times, people who are in situations like this, people who grow up in situations like that, they're really hard to love. And I feel like that Barbara really pulled off making us love this character, not hate him. We weren't constantly like mad at him or why did you do, you cheered for him from the very first page. He was so lovable. Okay, so I'm gonna read some of your comments. Charlotte Fishback says, yes, I asked my son if he wanted a brother. Let's see. Someone else said, I love that the book put you in his shoes and gave you a different perspective. Sorry, let me read your names. That was Jacqueline. Benna Jacob says, I wanted to rescue this kid for over 400 pages. Donna said, yes, me too. Hi, Donna. I'm glad you're on. Renee said, Renee's telling, somebody asked, what book are we talking about? We're talking about, guys, hello. We're talking about Demon Copperhead. What else do you have? Joe Erica Lopez says, yes, you loved him despite his flaws. Nikki says it made her want to foster. Let me go back and read some of these other comments that were coming in. Let's see. I loved how this book opened my mind, says Mrs. Queen Bishop. I love when I read a parallel in David Copperfield. Yeah, like if you were a David Copperfield fan and you saw the way that she named the characters, which is something I want to ask her about. Benna Jacob says, I love Demon has a distinct voice. I wish I could hear him as soon as I started reading his words. Lisa Efam says, I was so mad at the gas station lady. Miranda says, I got so mad during that scene that I had to stop listening too. Kiki W says, oh my gosh, I was so upset. Nana Candy says, I kept reading to see if Demon would be okay. Bethany says, I loved his innocence. Renee says, secondhand anxiety for sure. Guys, I mean, this book just created so much feeling. And I just really love that. Hello. Oh, look, we got a guest. Everybody say, hi, Steven.
Hey.
What'd you love about the book?
Barbara Kingsolver. What a genius.
Okay, let me ask you my next question. Who did you hate the most? Okay, now first, before you start typing anything, before you answer, I need to remind you of how many characters we hated in this book, okay?
Gas station lady.
So, I didn't even put her on there. Okay, I definitely hated her. Well, first of all, I hated Demon's mom. I'm like, get yourself together for your son. Then I hated the Peggotts because I was mad at them for not...
I hate the Peggotts.
You weren't mad at them for not taking him in?
They did.
I mean, I understand why they didn't, but I was still mad at them. Okay, I was mad at the Macaubes for how they treated Demon like a puppy. Remember how they made him like live on an air mattress in their laundry room? Okay, I was mad at Fast Forward. Were you mad at him?
Yeah, I thought Fast Forward was one of the best characters, though. I thought that the dimensions of Fast Forward were, unfolding very slowly, very interesting.
It was interesting because you didn't know whether to trust him or not. You didn't know whether if he was gonna help Demon, or even in when he took his money at the beginning, he was like, "Give me all your money. We'll have a party." Okay, did you hate U-Haul? He was the guy that worked for. He was the guy that worked for the coach.
It's been a month.
Yeah,
or so.
He was the guy that worked for the football coach. He
Yeah,
was so creepy.
Yeah, no, U-Haul. I thought U-Haul was going to turn out much darker. I thought U-Haul was going to take everything down. So, you know, I didn't love U-Haul, but I thought U-Haul had, you know, I thought U-Haul was going to be even more.
Okay, guys, you gotta don't be distracted that Stephen Furtick is on here. I need to know who you hated of these characters that we're talking about. So Jenny Dillon is saying U-Haul. Somebody's saying U-Haul was slimy. Okay, how about Dory, the girlfriend?
Yeah.
Did you hate her?
Hate her? That's a Barbara Kingsolver did not make me hate.
You don't like that I'm using the word hate?
No, because I feel like she so wonderfully created these characters that I felt dimension, nuance, humanity. I can't go love and hate heroes and villains. It was too well written for these categories.
Well, there were just so many people that I felt like they were wrecking his life, and they could have helped him more. All right, let's read what some people are saying. So, Heidi says she totally hated the stepdad. He started the downfall.
Yeah.
That's kind of true.
Right.
He was horrible.
Right.
Emily says Dory is sad.
Right.
Kate says I pitied Dory. Bethany says Dory was such a hard character. MT Sante says I hated U-Haul all the way. A Grace says Dory was trouble. Okay, Jackie says I loved Mrs. Peggott, but I was so mad she wouldn't take Demon in. See, me too. Now tell me why you weren't mad about that.
I wasn't. There was frustration that she wouldn't take Demon in, but not hatred.
Well, I mean, hate is just a bottom shelf word.
It was frustrating.
Frustrating.
I understood. Somehow I understood.
Okay. Dory was so sad but selfish. Let's see. Okay. Somebody says, Nana says, I felt bad for Dory. She needed love. Maggot's dad. Yeah,
Dory
that was
was
a sad story.
Dory was a great character.
She was a great character.
Great character.
My sister and my mom, while they were reading, hey, Emily, if you're on, did you skip to the end of the book? We all need to know. My mom and my sister kept texting me, and you kind of did too. You didn't ask me as much because you don't like to know the end. But they kept texting me, they're like, does this book get better? Does this book get better? And I kept texting, I'm like, do you really want to know? Ashley says, I wanted Coach to do more for him. I thought it was the break he needed. Now, that was like you needed a breath of air and the Coach and what was the other girl's name? I forget. Hold on, let me look it up. The Coach's daughter. How can I forget her name? Her name was not Emmy. That's the one I'm thinking of.
No, they'll show you on that.
Yeah, they'll tell me. Why can't I? Angus. She was a great character.
Incredible character.
Oh, Jody Jennings read the book too. He said, I like the Indian store owner guy. How he gave him the hot dogs. You're like, this poor kid is so hungry. Please give him some hot dogs. There's Angus. All right. So we talked about what we loved. We talked about what we hated. You know, one of the things that you told me that you loved about the book, babe, is how it started in one time with one character, and it never like went forwards and backwards. It only went forward in time.
And I guess that's how David Copperfield flows too.
Yeah.
But I haven't read it.
I think that's pretty hard to pull off, though, to not be able to go back and give any kind of backstory pretty much on anything. Anything else you want to say before you want to meet Barbara?
Me? Yeah, I gotta meet Barbara.
Okay.
I'm so amazed by Barbara.
All right. You have anything else to say about what you loved about the book?
I'm just
Do you want to pull
thankful
up a
for
chair?
this book club. No, I'll stand.
Okay.
Standing
Guys,
on.
can we get Barbara on? You've heard enough of us.
Hello. Hi,
Barbara.
finally. I was here the whole time. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. And I saw your name on there, so I knew you were here. So, oh my goodness. Thank you so much for being on here tonight. I had this whole thing I was going to introduce you with all of your awards and nominations. I don't know if everybody
Don't go
knows.
there. Don't do that. Don't waste time. Let's
We
talk.
really love this book.
What a
I
book.
can tell that.
What a
Thank you
book.
very much.
We really, really loved it. There's nothing like reading a book that you can't put down, but that also makes you love something and cheer for someone, but also learn about a situation at the same time. And just well done.
Well, thank you. And what I heard a lot of in your talking and also seeing in the comments is that people felt compassion for a sort of character that they really didn't know before, hadn't thought that much about before. Also, that everyone wanted to adopt Demon. That makes me so happy, because that's why I write. It's really why I wrote this book, because I live here in Southwest Virginia. Demon's home is my home. I know these kids. Everything that happened in this book has happened to someone I know, or me, but mostly other people that I know. So this is all real. And I live in a part of the country that does not get very, very much attention from the outside world. And if we show up, if Appalachians show up on TV or in the movies, you know what we are. We're dumb hillbillies. Right. And it's not fair, and it's not right, and it makes a lot of people here really mad. So I sort of feel like I have a part of my job is to represent, you know, my people and our problems in a way that will just bring some compassion.
Yeah, and you did that, and you did it so well but also making the scenery and the description like you wanted to be there. One of my favorite parts was at the very end of the book when you talked about being country poor and city poor, and then you go on and you describe what it's like to live in the country. I don't want to waste time on that, but the whole book was just so beautifully done. I want you to start off by just reading us an excerpt from the book, because I love to hear authors read their own story in their own words. We actually have an ongoing argument because Stephen doesn't love audiobooks because he feels like the narrators interpret the story in a way that you may or may not interpret it if you were just reading it with your eyes. Yeah. And so, but
yeah, I had my own demon. I didn't want demon.
Yeah, just kind of like when you go to the movies and that if the character that's made from a book and nobody looks right because they're not the characters you had in your mind. Well, exactly. I can tell you something. I almost always narrate my own audiobooks. Okay. For that reason. I want readers to hear the way these characters, the way you
meant for them to be.
Exactly. But in this case, seemed like, I mean, I could pull off the voice of a teenage boy on the page, but maybe, you know, in your ear, it would feel a little distracting to hear me talking about, you know, like my girlfriend and all that. So anyway, but I thought I chose Charlie Thurston.
I thought he was amazing.
I thought he did a fantastic job. So sure, I'm gonna, would you like me to read?
Yes.
Okay. Stephen, sorry.
No, I heard you the
I heard
you the whole time.
Okay,
because
you don't mind.
I watched your interview when you shared the book before it was out. So I already had you in my head. So then the Audible threw me off. So.
Okay. Well, I'm going to read just from the very beginning of the book, just the first page. Okay. First, I got myself born. A decent crowd was on hand to watch, and they've always given me that much. The worst of the job was up to me, my mother being, let's just say, out of it. On any other day, they'd have seen her outside on the deck of her trailer home, good neighbors taking notice, pestering trouble as they will. All through the dog breath air of late summer and fall, cast an eye up the mountain, and there she'd be, little bleach blonde, smoking her Pall Malls, hanging on that railing like she's captain of her ship up there, and now might be the hour it's going down. This is an 18-year-old girl we're discussing, all on her own and as pregnant as it gets. The day she failed to show, it fell to Nance Peggott to go bang on the door, barge inside, and find her passed out on the bathroom floor with her junk all over the place and me already coming out. A slick, fish-colored hostage picking up grit from the vinyl tile, worming and shoving around because I'm still inside the sack that babies float in pre-real life. Mr. Peggott was outside idling his truck, headed for evening service, probably thinking about how much of his life he'd spent waiting on women. His wife would have told him the Jesusing could hold on a minute. First, she needed to go see if the little pregnant gal had got herself liquored up again. Mrs. Paget, being a lady that doesn't beat around the bushes, and if need be, will tell Christ Jesus to sit tight and keep his pretty hair on. She came back out yelling for him to call 911 because a poor child is in the bathroom trying to punch himself out of a bag, like a little blue prize fighter. Those are the words she'd use later on, being not at all shy to discuss the worst day of my mom's life. And if that's how I came across to the first people that laid eyes on me, I'll take it. To me, that says I had a fighting chance. Long odds, yes, I know. If a mother is lying in her own piss and pill bottles while they're slapping the kid she's shunted out, telling him to look alive, likely that sucker is doomed. Kid born to the junkie will be a junkie. He'll grow up to be everything you don't want to know. The rotten teeth and dead zone eyes, the nuisance of locking up your tools in the garage so they don't walk off, the rent by the week motel squatting well back from the scenic highway. This kid, if he wanted a shot at the finer things, should have got him delivered to some rich or smart or Christian non-using type of mother. Anybody will tell you the born of this world are marked from the get-out, win or lose. Me, though, I was a born sucker for the superhero rescue. Did that line of work even exist in our trailer home universe? Had they all quit Smallville and gone looking for bigger action? Save or be saved? These are questions. You want to think it's not over till the last page. And it isn't.
And I was hooked from the very beginning. And a lot of books, you know, it takes time to get into, but I was hooked from right there.
Barbara, is First I Got Myself Born your best opening sentence of all time?
Well, I basically took it from Charles Dickens. So
How is that sentence? How is that sentence on his?
Chapter 1, I am born. That's how David Copperfield starts.
Not as good. First I got myself born.
First I got my. So yeah, that's and David Copperfield says in Dickens's novel, he says, whether I am to be the hero of my own story remains to be seen. He asked the same question that my demon does, save or be saved. These are questions. But that, when I read that line, after I decided to kind of use Dickens as a sort of template for this book, I saw that line about being the hero of my own story, and that gave me the idea of superheroes, that this kid would be obsessed with superheroes because it seems like a modern, well, you know, it's a very, very ordinary thing for little boys to love superheroes, but especially in his situation where no human is on his radar that's going to save him, and it's a very natural thing for him to imagine like superpowers. And when he starts assigning, he starts looking at people and seeing their superpowers. So it was kind of a way into the story. But yeah, I'm glad you liked that opening.
Okay, so take us back, because we both watched your conversation with Ann Paget, who I also am a big fan. I've tried to get her to be on book club, but I loved your conversation with her, and you talked about how Ann says that writing a novel is like walking around a house and looking for the key.
Yeah.
And then you tell this story about how you knew you wanted to write about Appalachia and about this boy, but you didn't know how to do it.
Right. Well, I didn't know about the boy. I knew I wanted to write about this area, these counties where I live, right around here, which is ground zero of the opioid addiction. We were chosen, by Purdue Pharma. We were targeted, this place, and the wreckage that has been left. We have a generation of kids growing up orphaned by addiction. And that's really important. It's something so important that's happening here that, just I wanted people to know. And it's a dark subject.
Yeah.
And so I spent several years trying to figure out how can I tell the story that won't be, just won't turn people away, you know, that will engage people and want them to care. And that's, and David Copperfield was the key when I realized that this is what Dickens did. He told these dark stories about poverty and institutional poverty and what it does to kids, especially. And what he told me, what Dickens told me was, you let the kid tell the story. And when I got that message, which came in a very unusual way.
Tell about it. Where were you?
Well, I mean, it's a story I've told a lot of times, but long story short, I was at the end of a book tour in London, and I had a weekend to kill, and I booked myself into this bed and breakfast, which had been Charles Dickens's home. And his stuff was still there in his desk, and there was nobody else. It was November. It wasn't a very busy time. It was cold and rainy and horrible weather. And so they said, just make yourselves at home. And I just went and sat at Charles Dickens's desk, and his stuff was there. And I was looking out the window. It was nighttime, and I just felt this rage coming up through the floor, through sort of my feet and through the wood of that desk. And I just felt the presence of this man who really spent his whole life protesting against the way Victorian society treated poor people and kids, because that was his background. And David Copperfield was his story. That was the most autobiographical of his books. And it had never been particularly my favorite book, but that night when I had that sort of communion with Dickens and his anger, I understood that the key is you let the child tell the story, because that innocence, that hopefulness, that all kids are born with, that sort of, need to be protected, that was the way in. And so I immediately thought of my demon Copperhead with red hair, and he would be in the luncheon, and it just all came to me. And I started writing the book on his desk that night, on Charles Dickens's desk. So much has been made of, do I have to read Dickens first? Do I have to read? You don't. It's completely irrelevant, as you have said. I kind of prefer that you don't read it first if you haven't, because it'll give away the ending. It'll give away a lot. It'll give away a lot of the plot, because I really followed his plot very closely, and the characters all correlate to characters. There's an Angus. Her name is Agnes in the book, which actually my Angus is really Agnes as well. There's the fast forward character is called Steerforth, and he's a sociopath, as my fast forward is. So the characters correlate and the plot correlates, but I had to bring it all into a modern, sort of
but
this place.
You act like that wasn't a hard thing to do, because you took it
was a very hard thing to do. Yeah, it's my job, though. It took years and years. No, I'm not saying it was easy, but it's my job, and I love it. I love that I get to get up every morning and go to my desk and make up stories. That's like, what could be better? But I love a challenge, and I really enjoyed that challenge and the thing is, if it wasn't going to work, I would have thrown it away. I wasn't married to that idea. I just thought, let's see if this works. And I actually kind of laid it out all on spreadsheets, all the chapters, and I sort of I worked out my plot, my characters, and I saw that it was going to work beautifully. And so I just said, well, thanks, Charles. Good go. Nice job. Nice partnership. But the book is its own story, and you really do not have to read David Copperfield. But if you do, after you've read my novel, you'll be in on 1,000 private jokes. All these little jokes.
I mean, I didn't read the book. I watched the movie, and I was like, the character Peggotty, and I was like, oh my gosh. But you took a woman and then you made her a couple instead of, and it was just like so many of the characters that was there anything that you left out? Was there any part of his plot that you were like, yeah?
There were a few sort of blind alleys, like 2/3 of the way through, where he goes to law school. That wasn't going to happen for Demon. But and there were some characters, like in David Copperfield, Murdstone. which is Stoner, the evil stepfather who comes in. He actually has a sister named Jane Murdstone. That was too much. Just one Stoner was enough. So I did, I pared things down, but it was also really fun to think of a sort of to make these translations. Like, for example, the Pegatees. Well, there's Pegati, the woman who's like the grandmother next door. She's the woman who always really looks after David when his mother can't. But she has this whole extended family, as the Pegatees are. And when he goes to visit them, they live in this upside down boat. They live in an overturned boat. So that was I had June Peggott and Emmy Peggott live in a geodesic dome, which he describes as like an upside down boathouse. And of course, none of them can say it. He calls it a geographic dome and every kind of thing. But, it's this funny house that looks like an upside down boat. So it was just fun to do that. But fundamentally, the plot was, sort of, I laid down the tracks of the plot, and then I just really enjoyed delving into these characters and making them my own. And it was so interesting that when you were listing and everyone was listening the litany of hatred. I'm gonna go with your husband. I didn't hate anybody, and I feel like it's really the novelist's job is to find sympathy with every single character, even the really awful ones, because I have to write them from the inside, right? So they will be convincing. And none of these people hate themselves. I mean, there are people who hate themselves, but they're not, they're not the people that we end up hating. They're sort of more sad, and we feel sorry for them. But even like Hitler, he thought he was great. He thought he was doing a wonderful, he thought he was a public servant.
Right.
His mother loved him, so as a novelist, I have to get really deep inside all of these characters and find what they love about themselves. And also, what are they afraid of? Because fear is almost always driving bad behavior.
Yeah.
Right? Hurtful behavior. And so I had to get inside of Stoner. He was tough. I probably have the least sympathy for him because he had a lot of power.
Yeah.
But the poor Mrs. Macabre. I mean, she was with her babies and her kids and her poverty and everything.
Selling all of her stuff all the time.
Right. Yeah. And her parents who didn't, who were so condescending. Why did you marry that loser and everything, and she was just driven by her material wants and her fear of being perceived as poor, which is such a big part of poverty in our society, because poverty is equated with shame. And because we have this myth, if you're smart enough and if you work hard, anybody can be rich in America, which is absolutely not true, but we still internalize that. So if we're poor, we feel like I must not be smart or I must not be working hard. So all that, I just really had to think long and hard about what was moving these characters. So even and you're allowed to hate them if you want to, but I had to find what made them tick, what makes them the person they are. And certainly I didn't hate Dory. I loved Dory. It was so hard to, listen, you think it's hard to read a book like this? It is hard to write a book like this. That scene in the gas station that everybody mentioned, I just broke down in tears every time I tried to write it. And then I had to walk away from my desk and say, can he keep his money? Can he get away? No, he cannot. We have to do this. But, I also,
amazing.
And the sadness of Dory, just the slow descent, and you see it coming.
Where she's going.
Yeah. And when it finally happens, he's almost relieved. Yeah. He's almost like she's free now, because he knows he was so, it broke him that he couldn't save her. And so anyway, I mean, Fast Forward was the hardest character to write because he is a sociopath. That's what he was in the Dickens novel, which I thought was very interesting. In Victorian times, they didn't have that diagnosis, I feel pretty sure, but that's exactly what he was.
Right.
And that's a hard character to write, because the tricky thing about a sociopath is that they're very appealing, very attractive people. They get you to want you want to, as Demon always says, you wanted to be on his team.
You wanted him to like you.
Yeah, you would do anything for him to like you. And at the same time, you kind of feel it coming. He is so evil. He wants the love, he wants the attention, but he doesn't give anything back. He's just a user. And it takes, poor Demon longer to realize that than it probably, took the rest of us. But he's a kid, and he's like, he's desperate for people to look up to.
Yeah, and he's a kid of the system too, right? He never had anybody who loved him or who cared for him, and so how would he even know how to do that?
Exactly. Demon admires him because he also came up in the foster care system, and he seems to be successful, and so Demon's like, watch and learn. So just sort of giving you an inside look at what kids do when the only options they have are bad and worse,
and survival.
Yeah, it comes down to that, survival. And poor Mrs. Paget, I mean, of course we wished that she would have taken him in, but she is so tired. I mean, come on. She raised 8 kids, then she raised, poor Maggot, and she raised Demon. See? And she just wants to be a grandma. And she's afraid. Again, it's fear. She sees these boys are going to be teenagers. She's already lost 2 of her kids to sort of the vicissitudes of teenage life, and she's afraid of failing them. She just wants somebody else to do it. She doesn't want, she wants Demon to be saved, but she feels like someone else should do it.
Don't you think she probably told herself the story that the foster care system is okay and they'll take care of them?
Of course, because this Mrs., they've talked to Miss Barks. Miss Barks says, don't worry, we'll find somebody, because that's her job. She has to say that. But and that's another whole thing. I'll tell you, when I was researching, because I had to do a lot of research. I do live here, and I am surrounded, but I know a lot of pretty much every family I know has been touched by addiction. Mm-hmm. But I still had to know the details, like how does a foster system work? How does DSS work? How is a kid removed, and what are the rules? And I was amazed to learn that the foster care system is a for-profit business.
Yeah, that's insane.
How does that make sense?
Right.
That it's run by companies, so these kids are products, which Demon, finally, when he finally realizes that, he's like, okay, done. I really don't have to try to believe in this anymore.
Give me my jar, and I'm gonna hitchhike. I'm gonna have to figure this out on my own.
I'm so out of here. And I'll depend on my guys. I'll depend on, good thing I don't have to depend on adults. So, there were a lot, and I became friends with a number of people who have been through, this really terrible journey into addiction and through rehab, so that I could, because I, had to know the specifics that fortunately I didn't already know. Like, okay, here's this pill. How does the pill go into the veins?
Right.
What are the steps? I had to know, a lot of specific information, and I could only find that out by getting to know people who have been there and hearing their stories. All young people, mostly young women, became my, these informants who became friends, who I talked with again and again, and I just listened to their stories, and every single one started with a legal prescription, a prescription from a doctor. Yeah. Every single one of these women had gone into addiction starting with a bottle of pills because of a work injury or some kind of an injury. A doctor saying just what the drug company told them, take these on the hour, don't miss one, stay ahead of the pain, take them around the clock, whatever, you know, whatever
Right.
the rules are, take them. And by the time they finished that first bottle, they were already addicted so that if they didn't get more pills, they were desperately sick. That's what Oxy did to people here. That's what Purdue Pharma did here. And they lied, you know, Purdue lied. They produced false studies and false data, convincing these doctors that this was a miracle drug, that it's not addictive. And so many people became addicted and didn't even know that that was the problem. They just knew they were really sick, and they kept going back to the doctor saying, I need more of those pills because I feel terrible. The myth is that well, so many myths, that addicted addicts are bad people. It's
Right.
moral failure. It's a disease.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to go there. And most addicted people are not chasing a high. They're trying not to be dope sick.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes so much energy. As Demon says at one point, you have no idea it's the hardest work in the world to be addicted. Every day starts with this really difficult job.
Yeah.
Finding your means, finding your connect, getting your stuff so that you won't feel like you're going to die. So one thing I hope from this book is that people can perhaps reassess these messages that we've gotten for honestly 50 years. The so-called war on drugs is 50 years old, and it's propaganda that's given to kids in school. I mean, my kids all went to these, the DARE officer would come and talk, and it's criminalizing addiction instead of explaining it as a disease that can be treated and can be cured, but it can only be treated with medicine and medical assistance and compassion. And if you just put people in jail, that doesn't cure addiction any more than it cures cancer.
Right.
So yeah.
So you're reading, so you're doing all this research, you're talking to people, you're writing, you're living with these characters. I mean, are you able to sleep at night? Like, have you ever written a book that affected you? Like, I feel like you're saying this book affected you.
Well, every book takes you somewhere. It takes you a lot of places. It takes you away from your family. It takes you away from your safety. It's an interesting job. It's voluntary, and yet once you've committed, you have to go the distance. But this book, yes, was especially hard because it's a kid. I have a really hard time reading books about anything when it looks like something bad is going to happen to a child in a novel. This is the only time I do this. I skim ahead. I look for the child's name. I want to make sure they're okay. And if they're not, this was hard to write. So many days I had to go into that dark place and be in that really sad, hopeless world that Demon inhabited. And then I would have to come out of it and come downstairs and make dinner. And some days it just felt it felt like too much. It was too hard. And those are the days that my dear husband, who's Stephen, also Stephen, would take me by the hand and say, let's walk. We live on a farm at the edge of the woods, and he would say, let's go for a walk. And we would just walk in the woods, and I would let the beautiful world come back to me, and I would just go through my litany of gratitudes. My daughters are fine. We're all fine. We're okay. A lot of people aren't okay, but I'm doing what I can for the demons of this world. I mean, I just have to make my peace day after day. But it was hard. As hard as it is to read, it's that hard to write. Believe you me. If it weren't hard to write, it wouldn't work. Right. Do you know what I mean? If it weren't in there with them.
That's why it worked. Yeah. Because you felt it first.
It wouldn't feel authentic if it weren't emotional for the writer.
So talk to me for a minute about the grittiness and the explicit content that was in this book, because I've read others of your books and there's not as much of just the grit and the explicit situations. How did you decide, no, this needs to be in here?
This is a story mostly of a teenage boy. And if you know teenage boys, that's their world. I mean, teenager, not just boys. I mean, the like, we'll get through this. Many parents who are trying to protect their children, you know, by censoring books in their libraries, have no idea what their kids are hearing and probably saying at school. You know, it would have been so ridiculous if Demon said, "Oh darn,"
right?
"Oh heck," you know. Let's face it. Although, you know, of course, it gave me pause. He doesn't talk the way I talk. He doesn't. You know, I try not to talk like that. But I realized early on. I wrote about the first 50 pages I gave to Stephen, my husband, who's always my first reader, and he read through it and he said, "This one is not going to be adopted into the high school curriculum." And I said, "Nope, you're right. It should be, but no, it won't be." After I'd written 100 pages, I did a search, just like a word search, to see how many F-bombs Demon had dropped in the first 100 pages. It was like 125. So I thought, maybe I could scale that back. I went through and cut it back to like 70 or something. But you know, he talks the way he talks because that's real. And also his, you know, the situations, the drugs, the fact that he's basically living as an adult with his girlfriend when he's 17. That's real, and it's not glorified in this book. It's laid out as a truth for these kids who have no adults in their lives. What else can they do? Demon essentially raised his own mother. You know, he was the one who got her to work on time, and who told her, you know, found her keys for her and her shoes. And so yeah, I hope that readers understand. I mean, once in a while I get letters from people saying, "How can you use this language?" And my answer is, I don't. Demon does. Demon is not me, and he's not my children, but he's real. And if you would help take care of the demons of the world, their language would be better, and a lot of other things would be better too.
Right. He's raising himself and letting other teenagers raise him, and And I think
it's funny that you had to dial it back, not dial it up as you went.
Oh no, I had to dial it back because I kind of channeled this kid. I just heard him. I heard him talking. It was surprising how easily that I mean, I don't just mean his language, but his vernacular, the way he talks, is pretty. That's my home language. And again, I'm not talking about the profanity, but the way, like the whenever, like the way people say around here, say whenever, meaning when, like whenever I went to the store means whenever I went this morning. You know what I'm talking about? All these idioms that he uses, and that's Appalachian talk. And I just heard him, and I just let him talk, let him be who he was.
So you finish the story, and how do you move on from him? Where is he now?
He's still here. But I gave him a nice send off. I feel like I left him in a good place. And I can imagine him, you know, having. I hate to do spoilers, but I can imagine.
Oh, you can do spoilers.
I know you said. I know you said that. I still sort of shy away from it, but he's going to see the ocean. he's got a good woman. She's got and the most important thing I think is that he has a good shot at staying in Lee County, which is what he wants. So the terrible conflict for so many people here is that it's hard to stay and it's hard to leave.
Mm-hmm.
To leave family, what Demon says is, all you are is all you've ever been. Like, when you're in a place where everybody has known you since you were literally born, it's so important to you to maintain that community and in this beautiful place where we live. It's so hard to leave, but for kids like Demon, it's so hard to stay when, like, as he says, when he's thinking about going to that thing at the football field, home. For coach, and he says, well, every single person there would try to sell me drugs unless they liked me, and then they'd give them to me for free. So just that's his dilemma, how to stay in a place where it's going to be so hard for him to be sober and to be to stay clean and stay sort of on track. But I think he and Angus as a team can do it. That's what I think. So. I left there, and I'm thinking about the next novel, and I'm also thinking about screenwriting, because it looks like there's a real good chance this is going to go to this is going to go to the screen.
Man, I would be so scared if I were you to let this character go to the screen, because
I'm not letting him go. I write it.
Okay.
I write it and I co-produce. So I'm very particular about that. A lot of writers just say, here you go, I'll take the check, and then I won't even watch the movie. But I don't do that. I stay really involved, because
he's yours.
I write about real people, and right. I mean, not real people, but you know what I mean, real categories of people. And I can't turn my back on them. I can't betray them. I can't risk them being turned into, stereotypes or jokes on the screen. So I stay involved. So I will be a writer, and I'll be an executive producer, and I will only work with people that really respect, the characters and the mission, and they're out there. And it's really easy for me to say no to people that aren't the right people. So but I think it would be exciting for Demon to get, it's just another level of audience, because if I wrote this because I want, my people and these people, struggling people, to be seen, then it's
worth the
it's another
work
of them being seen.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
it's worth it.
That's what's next.
Oh my goodness. And you're working on, you turn in a book, and then you turn right around and you're working on something new.
That's what I do. Yeah.
Can you tell?
I usually take a vacation in between.
Did you take your vacation?
Go back to work. Pardon me?
Did you take the vacation yet?
I'm just about to.
Okay.
I'm just about, yeah. Because I just finished book tour about a month ago. There's it goes on. Well, this is part of it.
Yeah.
This part of the book goes on. After the book is published, there's about 3 months where I just talk about the book. Then I take a vacation.
And then, can you give us any sneak peeks into what you're working on?
Well, the screenwriting is actually, that's going to be
the
main
nice.
thing. This year will be probably Demon, Copperhead, and also another one of my books is likely to be adapted to feature film, and I'll be writing that too. So the novel, I have another novel. It's like on the back burner. I know what it's going to be about. I actually have a whole lot of it kind of mapped out.
I love it.
Do we take questions from the audience? I've seen all these wonderful hearts going up, but I haven't really read the comments.
Okay. I mean, we can take a few, but I want to honor your time if you'd like to do that.
I think the main thing we might have to honor is my phone's battery, because I gotta. If I just suddenly evaporate, you'll know. I started with 100%, I swear, but it's draining pretty quick.
All right,
so
I'll close us off. Okay, if you go away, I'll close it down.
Oh,
So
okay.
my sister Emily is always on. She wants to know if the book that you're taking to film is the Poisonwood Bible.
It is not. It is not. Good guess. I've been working on and off for about 15 years on that one, and it turns out it's very, very hard to adapt for a number of reasons. All kinds of both technical, sociological, cultural, many reasons.
Well, and it spans like 50 years or something. I mean, it's like the whole lifetime of the girl.
Well, yes, and I've actually worked on it as a limited series, which is the only way it would be possible to do it in like basically a 10-hour movie. But there are other difficult things too. It's what I would boil it down to this. To work on this film, I really want to work with African film professionals.
Okay.
And it's very hard to do that. It just so that one will have to wait. I think it'll happen eventually, but no, the next one will be Flight Behavior.
Oh, I read that one too. Okay. Somebody says this is Miss Nis says, would you write a book based from Emmy's perspective? Like, have you ever considered doing, a spinoff or a sequel of something you've already written?
No, because I'm done. What I love about being a novelist is that I get to do something completely new every time. When I was in college, I was that kid who wanted to major in everything. Every class I took, I was like, whoa, computer programming, whoa, Asian history, wow, anthropology. I would percent battery.
But that's what makes you a great author, because you're willing to go research anything.
That's exactly it. I mean, I ended up majoring in biology and anthropology and a graduate degree in ecology and evolutionary biology. But really, I love starting over every time and just it's like every novel is kind of like a PhD. You just get to dive into this deep research. Wow. You get to interview people. You just get to learn about a whole new subject, whole new professions, because everybody in your novel has to have a job, or they don't have a job, but you have to know and in a novel, you have to be as smart as everybody in your novel. You can't just say, then the physicist said something really physicy. You're like, you have to know what he says.
Right.
And it has to be right, so I love that part of it. I love learning new stuff and setting up a whole new question. Basically, I start with a question, and then I construct a plot that will, get people to not necessarily answer it, but get the reader to ask these questions for themselves. And when I'm done, I'm so happy that I did that, but I want to do something new. However, if whoever made that suggestion, if you want to invent Emmy's story, go for it. Because that's, as a writer, I'm giving you these characters to to have and to hold. You can imagine any fate for them that you want. They're yours.
I love that. All right, so Spotted Puppy 3 wants to know, and I would like to know this also, how long did it take you to write Demon Copperhead, from the time that you sat at Dickens' desk to the time that you turned in the manuscript? Because I feel like you take your time writing a book. Like, you're not trying to crank out a book every 18 months.
I am not. I could not. I couldn't write. No, the novels that I write take longer than that. It was about 3 years. Wow. From Dickens' desk to turning in the manuscript. I think that's right. And however, I'm always, when I'm writing a book, I'm always thinking about something else. So this, I think, is my 17th book.
That's what I count. I counted 17 today.
Yeah, and I've been doing this for about 34 years, I guess. So that comes out to almost, it's pretty close to one to every other year on on average, but sometimes, like, some take much longer and some are a little faster, but I've never written a novel in less than a year. That's unimaginable. 2 years would be the minimum.
Okay.
Because it's just, because I don't just write, I don't just research it and write it, I rewrite it. I rewrite. Every sentence in this book has been revised between 8 and 28 times. Everything gets rewritten. Whole sections get thrown out. It gets rearranged. It's the first draft is just the beginning. The revision is the beautiful part. That takes years.
That's what makes you good.
That's what
all right, Missy. No, I said that's what makes you good.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. But really, that's where the revision is. Where I think in any art form, almost it's the revision. The refinement is where the art happens. You don't just slap. Maybe Jackson Pollock, threw paint at a canvas, but I still think, he
painted the same painting 1,000 times.
Well, but then he would stand back and say, no, I need to throw more yellow. There's always a process of refinement and revision. And for me, that's my favorite part, because I love language so much.
So you're a revision addict, would you say?
I would hesitate to use that word. But I would say I love it. I get great pleasure from revision. I don't find it difficult. I find it very joyful. Just to take a sentence and just keep working it until it just sings. And when you get when every word is the right word, there's just this burst of endorphins. So yeah, it's great. I love my job.
Kelly Dottie wants to know, who is your favorite author and what are you currently reading? This is one of my favorite questions to ask authors. So thank you, Kelly, for asking that.
I can't name a favorite because I have so many favorites. I love, from the beginning. I in early days, I loved Doris Lessing. She was very important to me. I loved John Steinbeck. I loved Dickens. But now, the last several books I've read in a row. See, I always go blank too. That's the worst part. I go blank. The last 4 or 5 books that I read in a row, and I'm going to just call them up here to see what have I been reading. I read Horse by Geraldine Brooks, which I really loved. I really like Geraldine Brooks. I loved Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I didn't expect to. I am not a gamer. I didn't imagine that I would love that book so much, but I really did.
I agree.
Because it's not about gaming, it's about friendship.
Yeah.
And sort of how life has many chapters and how rare it is for one friend to be able to go through all of them.
It was a good book.
What else?
Now you're making me rethink if I should try and make it book club.
I'll tell you, it gave me more sympathy more empathy with gaming. I never really had that much respect for it, and now I do.
For what goes into it. Yeah,
for what goes into it, and that also for players, that there's more story involved. It's not just
yes.
I raised 2 daughters. As far as we went with gaming was Oregon Trail and Barbie Pet Rescue. So I never, I didn't have a kid who just went into that world as so many kids do. And so I was really glad to get more, sort of more understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked that a lot. I liked Now Is Not the Time to Panic. I've
seen that one.
I'm cheating here. It's terrible. I hate it, but I forget.
So you read on a Kindle? Are you looking at like an e-reader or something?
I am. Oh, Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel.
Okay.
That's an amazing book.
Talk to me about that one for a second. Talk me into reading that book, because I read, and you watched the show, It's Losing Me. They made the show about it.
Station 11.
Station 11.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't read that. This was my first Emily St. John Mandel. I am not that into time travel or science fiction. That's not my thing. I loved this book.
Okay.
It was about, and again, just like Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow was not really about gaming. This isn't really about time travel. It's about, oh gosh, how can I sum it up? It's about revisiting our choices,
okay,
and how we live with our choices. It's just so good. I really recommend it. I loved it. I loved Matrix by Lauren Groff, and it's about medieval nuns. And there's another subject I would not have expected to be that interested in, but it's really about female power,
okay.
and about how women, in this time when women had no other power, it's fascinating. Really, really good. So yes, I recommend that.
Okay.
And Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr.
That's another book I was scared to read.
Read it. It's absolutely wonderful. That's probably the best book I read last year.
Really?
So, yeah.
I don't like fantasy.
I'm not either. I mean, it's not my thing, but this is so good. So yeah, I heartily recommend all of those books.
Okay.
And I'm really picky. I probably start 3 books for every one I finish.
Okay.
Life is too short to read a book you don't love. There are too many of them left that you'll never get to. I'm giving you permission. Look, from the wisdom of my white hair, I'm saying, honey, don't waste time on a book that you don't love.
So we go back and forth about this. We go back and forth about this but I feel like
Sorry.
What if you give up too soon? Because there have been books that I have hung with, for more than half, and then it turns, or sometimes I go all the way to the end, and it's like the last, whatever fraction of the book, and I'm like, oh, I see what they were doing that whole time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I kind of like that. So I'm afraid of missing that.
Well, okay, if a friend tells you, hang in there, then that's another thing. Like, ask someone else who's read it, should I hang in there and why? But I'm just giving you permission. That's all. If you want to quit a book, I quit books all the time.
He does too, but I feel like he doesn't finish enough books.
Well, we all have I do. But anyway,
I didn't have to work to finish Demon.
All I'm saying is, I'm a very particular reader. It has to be for me to love a book, it has to be beautifully written and about something worthwhile, just about something that matters. I don't read fluff. So these books that I've just listed, I think are great. I recommend them.
Do you see what they're all saying?
Yeah.
What are they all saying?
He preached a sermon this weekend called Permission to Quit.
Ah,
that was literally the title of his sermon. So everybody's laughing and saying permission to quit.
That's what I'm saying. No, there is something, loyalty is valuable, of course. Loyalty, and of course I'll give a book 50 pages. Absolutely. I'm not going to quit. Okay, there are books that I just read the first paragraph and I know that's not going to work for me. But I think often if we are a certain type of person, we can take loyalty to a fault. We can waste too much of our souls on endeavors that aren't worthy. Did I just give your sermon, Pastor Steve?
I gotta say you did. You made me want to go part 2 this Sunday.
Okay. I found my calling. Anyway, and you asked what I was looking at. I read on my iPad. I do not have a Kindle because, well, I'm just going to say Amazon is not my friend. Amazon is not good. Amazon is just trying to put all booksellers out of business, and that would be a horrible loss. So that's my little commercial. So I don't have a Kindle, but I do read ebooks on my iPad. I buy them you can buy them in a way that helps independent bookstores.
Yes, Libro. Is it Libro?
Yes.
I like them for the audiobooks too.
Yeah, and so I'm for reading in any format. My kids who are millennials read mostly through their ears, because that's the way they have time to read, because they're, like when they're driving to pick up their kids or whatever, driving to work. And I'm all for it. I support reading in any, through any organs that work. And I love ebooks because I can carry 5 of them when I go on a flight, like a long flight. I can take 5 books and quit on 3 of them.
All right, here's my last question.
Okay.
Here's my last question, and then I'm going to let you go. And thank you so much for being on extra long with us tonight. If Demon Copperhead was somebody's first Barbara Kingsolver book, what would you say? All right, the next one you should read is this one of your books.
It depends on who you are. I mean, I get letters just about every day saying this one of my 17 books is their favorite one. The Bean Trees, which I wrote, whatever it was. That was my first novel 34 years ago. I was a child. There's still people who say that's their favorite book. If you're a scientist or like a biology person or sort of a nature loving person, you should read Prodigal Summer, because that is my biology novel. The Poisonwood Bible seems to stand as, like what a lot of people think is whatever, good, really good, whatever. Animal Dreams, which was my second novel, it's a theme about sort of going home and finding what you missed, like figuring out how to fit in again. So that a lot of people relate to that. My novel before this one, my most recent, my husband's favorite is The Lacuna. He thinks that was the best one.
Okay.
I think he likes Demon Copperhead as well as that. And then the novel just before this one was Unsheltered, and that is about paradigm shift, like how we deal with this feeling that the world is coming apart at the seams, that all the old rules don't apply anymore. That was the one before this one. So there's a little synopsis.
That's on my list. Unsheltered is my next Barbara Kingsolver book.
Good. I like to think that I'm getting better. I like to think each book is better than the one before. That's a goal, whether you're a tennis player or what. Although authors have a great advantage over athletes. We don't age out. We get better as we age, instead of having to retire at 30 with CTE or whatever, or bad knees. So I like to think that, but it's also kind of heartening to me that when I hear from someone who's maybe like 25 or 30 and they just read this novel that I wrote when I was close to that age, and they say, this really spoke to me. I like the idea that I've been many different writers over time, and that one isn't better than the other. The great thing about literature is every book is a different experience for every reader.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing, that we can take books personally, and they make us different people, because they bring us empathy and compassion for people who are other than us. And I think the world really needs that, if I'm allowed to preach. The world needs empathy right now, because we have a lot of people that are hating on each other, and it's getting us nowhere. So if we can read about people who are different from us, put our lives aside for a while and go into another life and really understand where they're coming from, I think that's going to make the world better.
And that's what I think is the power of fiction and the power of stories, is that they invoke empathy in a way that something realistic wouldn't. I think we just lost Barbara. How sad, but perfect. Amazing. Is that, because we're coming to an end.